This is a clip from the Red Cow Arcade podcast.
It was a huge move. Last couple of weeks have been huge movie news between San Diego Comic-Con, other trailers coming out, and of course, the HBO Warner Brothers mania
debacle. Yeah, they're craziness. Yeah, the Batgirl stuff, which is like you have this shot movie. It's not probably not finished, but all the principal photography has been shot.
Right.
It's in the can, and they canceled it because
taxes.
Well, no, because Discovery kind of bought Warner Brothers, right? Because AT&T sold it or shed it or whatever.
How do you buy Warner Brothers? I mean, it's a massive, massive company.
Well, there's been you remember when it was Time Warner? And then it was
AOL Time Warner.
It was Time Warner, AOL, yeah. AOL was a big player.
Warner Brothers has been like a real sloppy sex partner.
Yeah, and so now it's in Discovery now. And it is kind of interesting because it's like Warner Brothers. That's the biggest, it's the most classic film company.
Movies.
Movies is Warner Brothers. The WB Water Tower. The Animaniacs are in there.
Yeah, you gonna sell them?
You gonna sell them like a whore? No, it's interesting. And then DC obviously is in there, and so it's just interesting that Batgirl is just I get all the anti-woke YouTube videos fed to me, and it's like Midnight Edge. It's like, this must be like a disaster, and so it's such a woke travesty.
Audiences are rebelling against the woke propaganda.
And I have no idea if Batgirl's a woke propaganda, whatever. I'm willing to give anything a chance as long as it's got a good story.
Exactly.
So when people like say that stuff, it's like, okay, whatever. But
you check it out first, right?
Yeah, check it out first. But yeah, it's probably true. But it seems like, I think what is happening is that is the guy named Zasloff or something? He's the guy in charge of
the new boss,
Discovery of Warner. And
because you know a lot more about this than I do. I think. Let me make sure I have my facts straight. There is a streaming platform called Discovery Plus that nobody subscribes to.
I believe so.
Is that right?
I could be wrong, and Warner has HBO Max.
Yeah,
so
which is probably the biggest. My guess is it's the third market share for streaming platforms after Disney Plus and Netflix.
It's definitely one of the more highly regarded ones. It has the best content.
Yeah, Discovery Plus streams 70,000 plus real life TV episodes. I mean, that seems like a weak ass streaming platform.
Yeah, it's probably my guess is it's a bunch of reality TV and some stuff. Anyway, so you have they're culling a lot of the HBO Max shows. They're like canceling. They canceled Raised by Wolves, and apparently I think this Batgirl was going direct to streaming anyway, it seemed like. Which
is something I never understood in the first place. If you have like Michael Keaton as Batman in it, and you've got like the J.K. Simmons, Jim Gordon, and I always, it was like, I mean, Batgirl sure is not Batman, but she's a pretty known quantity, you know?
Yeah. And it seemed like the premise of the movie was going to be like kind of like a Batman Beyond type thing, where he's the he's got a protege, which I think could be interesting. If done well.
I mean, people have been asking for like a Michael Keaton Batman Beyond forever.
And from what I can tell from the test screenings, it tested better than both Black Adam and the new Shazam movie.
That's what I heard too.
So it's just like, okay, so you have something that's at least watchable. Like somebody, if you put it on a streaming service, somebody will watch it.
Yeah. Even if you just dump it there.
So it to me, it doesn't make sense. If there's some other like reason that they think that this Batgirl will destroy the brand, I don't know.
Yeah.
But because I do think that Discovery knows that DC is the best moneymaker they have. And so I think that's behind a lot of these decisions to cancel Batgirl and
It almost felt down
Supergirl.
like I guess, the other big news was that they canceled Scoob Holiday Hunt. I almost thought that was down.
But I think it's basically done too, like
Yeah.
that movie too. So it's like you have these movies that are almost done that you're canceling.
Right. So in
And
other
they're
words,
like they're not cheap. They're not cheap. They're what, $80 million.
right. The only reason that you would do that you would shelf a perfectly, a movie that can be watched, is if you determined that the cost of releasing it would be more than the cost of not releasing it. That you're just not going to make out in the end. And so, yeah, the only costs once it's done would be marketing, but that would be significantly reduced if it was straight to streaming. And, yeah, I guess like hits to the brand, but I've heard many people make this point. And it's a good point. It's like, how many more hits to the brand could you,
yeah, that's basically DC's MO at this point.
Yeah,
it's like it's release whatever.
yeah. Even I know that people love Peacemaker, and apparently they're not canceling Peacemaker. James Gunn went on record and was like, "Relax, guys, Peacemaker's fine." So we're gonna get season 2 of that show. Even that show is technically DCEU, meaning it's technically the Snyderverse, but that show doesn't fit in with the DCEU at all. So I don't even know why it would be. Shazam's similar in that way, and it's just brand confusion is almost their brand at this point, and so
yeah, and you got a Joker spin-offs all over the place.
You got to wonder what would be the
Joaquin
harm of a
Phoenix.
straight to streaming mediocre Batgirl movie. What would be the harm?
Yeah, with Michael Keaton and J.K. Simmons. It's
Yeah.
and Brendan Fraser, is that his name? Yeah, that guy.
Did it strikes me as almost vindictive.
Maybe
Like the new boss is pissed. I get this impression. I get the impression that they showed up. Once they were turned over to new leadership, they showed up and they were like, "I cannot believe what you're greenlighting around here." I heard there was some story about they greenlit some Clint Eastwood movie that was never going to make, or that came out and didn't make any money, and they were like, "Who the hell greenlit that?" And they were like, "Well, we have a relationship with Mr. Eastwood," and they were like, "Well, it's not friendship, it's show business, baby."
Yeah, and I understand that to some extent, but also, I love HBO Max. I love their programming, and I love that they do dump money into shows that have more prestige. It doesn't feel like a Netflix algorithm is generating it for me.
Yeah.
So
then what you're talking about is it's like having those prestige shows that don't necessarily have big returns is kind of like a way of giving the platform overall a certain credibility, right?
Yeah,
a non-tangible credibility.
Yeah, and taking risks too. So where you take a risk and it feels more organic, and it feels like there's some passion behind it. So you actually I would want to check it out.
Because the question is, Sam brought this up. Our friend Sam brought this up. He said something along the lines of these platforms are probably starting to wonder hey, if just as many people watch Dr. Pimple Popper as they do some prestige show, then why shouldn't it just be a platform full of Dr. Pimple Poppers?
Well, I don't want a platform of Dr. Pimple Popper. I don't want 90-day fiance or whatever it is.
It's just,
I don't want.
I'm sure it's hard to ignore their own metrics. I'm sure it's hard to The Simpsons is eating up all the bandwidth on that Disney Plus platform, as is Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It's in other words, it's that whole law of distribution of yeah, we've got 200,000 movies and shows, but really only 50 of them get watched,
Yeah, it's tough because I want to be surprised. I don't. I want to be I want the artistry of the craft of.
Yeah.
I want I want a whodunit starring a '90s has-been who's really acting the shit out of that role.
Yeah.
Kate Winslet in that Mayor of Easttown or whatever it's called.
No, I think you're right. I like really good HBO shows, really good prestige television. When they hit, people can't get it. It's just people live to watch these shows. Like, and if there's a show, like a Breaking Bad or like a Wire or like a Game of Thrones or whatever, like where you're just living to watch this thing, that drives subscribers and probably in the biggest possible way. True Blood back when it was on. I mean, not that wasn't the best show ever, but that would have driven subscribers to HBO Max for sure.
So it just gives me pause when they just start cutting that stuff like left and right. It's like, well,
yeah,
are you going to have the hits? Are you going to have the hits if you play so cautiously? And if you play, if they played this way when Game of Thrones was just starting, it would have been canceled after like the first season, So
that guy, Black Nerd Comedy, that Andre, he's got a YouTube channel. He had a cameo in the AVGN movie. He did a funny video in the past day where he was like, they're canceling Scoob Holiday Haunt. He's like, there has been a different Scooby-Doo spinoff every year since 1969. And like straight to DVD, Scrappy Doo, a dog named Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo meets the Mummy, Scooby-Doo meets wrestling. Like, what is the harm of releasing another Scooby-Doo movie? What is the cost?
Yeah, so it's just, and I'm sure that Flash movie will also be canceled too. But yeah, I mean, that's almost for good reason, I think. But
yeah, right. We're getting into that. Like, I can't.
You can't have a felon like starring in our movie.
Even like a few months ago, I was still like, well, we're not going to let this ruin the movie for us now, are we? But now I'm kind of like, I don't think I can look at that guy the same way ever again. I'm going to show up with my popcorn.
It's like I have limits.
Yeah, I'm going to show up with my popcorn and watch this guy be a hero. Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like my programming hasn't been updated in a while. So if somebody asks me my favorite movie, I'd probably reflexively try to say American Beauty, but I don't think I'd probably stop mid title set, like American Beauty, because it's like, one, it's got Kevin Spacey, and two, it's like Kevin Spacey like preying upon a young person. It's like,
it really recolors it. Well, if you had to have a second favorite movie, what would it be? Would it also involve somebody who got Me Too'd? Or produced by somebody who got Me Too'd?
Probably. It's very
my favorite
possible.
religion is Catholicism.
I can't win!
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.